Hey, if you're looking to create a set of financial projections for a residential rehab facility, then you have come to the right place because we have built a financial projection template built specifically for this purpose. I'm going to put a link in the description of the video below to this template so you can grab it and follow along as I kind of walk through it step by step. Now, what we're going to be doing here is putting together a 5-year financial model, and this is going to be what you need for a potential SBA loan or maybe to present to potential investors as you're trying to raise capital for your rehab facility. So this could be used well for a substance abuse type rehab facility is kind of the model that we're thinking here. And like I said, I'll take you through this step by step. Now, as a thank you to you, if you stick around to the very end of the video, we are going to give you access to a discount code, a coupon code that you can get as our thank you to you for watching a whole video about a spreadsheet. And yeah, before I dive into the details, just a little bit of my background. My name's Adam Huxama. I'm the co-founder of ProjectionHub. And before I started ProjectionHub, I was an SBA lender for 12 years and was executive director of an organization called Bankable, where we made SBA loans. We made about 1,500 loans during my time there. And so, I bring that kind of projection. So I bring that SBA lender perspective to the financial projection process and make sure that what we're helping you put together is going to meet the expectations of an SBA lender. Okay, with that, let's go ahead and dive into the details of how this template works. All right, so we're going to start here on the At a Glance tab, and this is kind of the end of the process. So after you've filled out all of your assumptions about your facility, this is kind of the end of the process. You've got some nice charts and graphs and tables that you're going to be able to throw into a business plan or a pitch deck. You also have a 5-year income statement summary, a 5-year cash flow summary, 5-year balance sheet, and then the income statement, cash flow, and balance sheet all broken down by month for each of the 5 years. So this is going to meet whatever SBA lender requirements you might have or what the typical investor would be looking for. But in order to produce all of these reports, we have a little bit of work to do. So we're going to go back to our input tabs here. So these blue input tabs are where we have to input our own assumptions here. Now, the first thing you need to know is that every cell that's highlighted in blue is an assumption that you can change without breaking anything in the model. So we're going to set our projection start month here to January 1st, 2026. We've got a personal investment. We're going to say we're personally investing $150,000. And maybe we're raising some outside investment capital of $200,000 here, both in kind of month 1 of the model. Now, on the accounts receivable terms, this is pretty important. If you're billing insurance, you are likely going to have to provide the service, then bill, and then wait to get paid, right? And so this is where you set the number of days that you'd expect it to take to get paid by whoever the payer is. So if it's private pay, if you're a only private pay facility, then this could be as little as 0, I suppose, right? You could have everybody prepaying in advance, right? And so that could be 0 days to collect. But in this instance, we're going to assume that you're billing insurance, at least for a portion of the work that you're doing. And so we set that to 60 days. Now, with the accounts payable terms here, we've got this set kind of an 80-20 rule here. 80% of the expenses you'll pay in the month you incur the expense, 20% on a 1-month delay. So you can think expenses that you might put on a credit card that you might incur the expense this month, but then have 30 days to pay that expense. And so that, we typically just suggest leaving that kind of that 80-20 level. Now, on the inventory side of things, we're just going to set this to 0. You aren't really selling a product that you have in inventory. Now, you might have some supplies, but that's really minimal probably. And so we're going to just set that to 0 for this use case. Now, for fixed assets here, let's say that we are buying the building, either buying or constructing a building. In this case, we're going to buy a building for $500,000. Then we're going to have improvements and renovations of $200,000 to get the facility ready. And then we've got some furniture, kitchen equipment, laundry, therapy facility, and maybe a work vehicle of some sort. Okay, so here's kind of our fixed assets that we think these are kind of our startup cost, right? And then we have the ability to put in loans. And so we're going to have actually 2 separate loans here in this example. We're going to have a mortgage of $600,000, and you can kind of think about that as covering this, right? The building and the renovations, probably what you're going to be able to use the mortgage for. This totals $700,000. Maybe you've got a $600,000 mortgage and you put in $100,000 of equity into that building. We've got an 8% interest rate over a 30-year term there. Then maybe you also get an SBA loan for kind of operational funds or working capital. And so that's what we have here, $500,000, 10%. 10% over 120-month term or 10-year term. All right, let's go to our input revenue tab. Now, what we have here is you have the ability to put in kind of different room types is kind of the idea here. So let's say you have a private room option, maybe a semi-private, and then maybe a dormitory style room option at the facility. And so there's different options. And then what you can put in here is the quantity of patients utilizing each room type. So this is kind of your capacity, right? So you're saying at any one time, we can have 10 patients in a private room. We can have 22 patients in a semi-private room. So just to be clear, this would not be saying that you have 22 semi-private rooms, each with 2 people. It'd be saying, it's more like saying you have 11 semi-private rooms that have a capacity of 22 people. So what you want to put in here is the number of people that would be paying, right, for that room type. You can say what month that room is going to start to be available. So for example, if you said, we're going to start with only dormitory rooms and semi-private rooms, and then we're going to build out some additional private rooms over time. Maybe those aren't going to be available till month 10. You could change that, right? So that those rooms would only be available in a future month. And then we can set an average revenue per month for the different room types. And then this is the average number of labor hours per unit per day. Okay, so this is labor from, maybe a therapist or a nurse or a CNA and other support staff. And then this is our food cost per unit per day, or really per person per day, I should say. And then we can set our annual increase in rental rates. So this is just kind of your inflation rate here, 3% inflation and rental rates and labor and food costs. And now here you can set your percentage capacity filled. So let's say when we first opened, we're at 40% capacity filled in the first month, and we kind of build up over time to reach 85% capacity. And then from there, we kind of have stabilized. We grow to 3% rate per year until we get a maximum capacity filled of 90%. Now, you could set the maximum capacity at 100% if you want. Kind of figure you're always going to have some turnover. You're probably never going to just have this perfect, 100% capacity, but maybe you would. And so you can adjust that if you'd like. So this will then project our residential care revenue here, and then our direct labor. So the way that we have this working, so remember, we've set the number of hours kind of on a per person basis. We're saying per person, 4 hours per day of kind of direct labor. And that direct labor is going to be split out based on what's in this table. So we're saying percentage of the total labor hours needed. So here, based on the number of patients we're going to have in this first month, we need 1,947 labor hours is what we're saying here. So we're saying 55% of those labor hours are going to be CNA, paid $15 an hour, plus 10% in taxes and benefits. 25% of those hours are going to be a licensed therapist at $25 an hour, and so on, right? So that will allow us to calculate our labor costs as well as our food costs down here. Okay, here is our operating expense tab. So we can see maybe in the first handful of months, we are spending more on advertising. So $5,000 a month on advertising for the first 3 months. And then maybe we kind of stabilize at a $500 a month budget for that. We have accounting services, bank fees. We have a billing department. So you can set expenses as a percentage of revenue or a fixed dollar amount. So in this example, we're saying set this to 6%. A lot of times you might outsource billing to insurance companies, to like a third party that does the billing, and they collect a percentage of total revenue. And so that's what we've got set up here. We have some software, maybe your insurance. Your insurance will probably scale with your revenue in some cases. So, you might have a certain amount of insurance, but then that liability insurance kind of probably depends, or it's probably going to be a function of how many patients do you have. For example, a facility that sees 1,000 patients a year versus one that sees 50 patients a year is probably going to pay something different in terms of insurance. And so that's why we set that as a percentage of revenue. And you can see these other kind of operating expenses that we have here. So all of this can be adjusted based on your specific facility plans. And then here we can set our salaried position. So we've already kind of set the direct labor, nursing staff, and that sort of thing, but you have administrative staff, right? And so we've got a facility director here with a $90,000 annual salary, 10% for benefits here, starting in month 1, ending in month 60, which is the end of the 5-year model. We have one of these employees, and we're going to give them a 3% annual raise. You can see the administrative staff. Perhaps you might need, let's say you needed 2 administrative staff because to cover the hours that you need to have somebody on site and on staff, maybe you need 2 of those positions. Maybe you need 2 kitchen staff and maybe 1 housekeeper. Okay, so we can set those assumptions in here. Now we can take a look at how this plays out. So based on the numbers that we have in there right now, we can see, first year, we're pretty tight. We have a net loss from a net income perspective. We have a little bit of positive EBITDA here, so maybe a little bit of positive cash flow, but we're still ramping up to try to reach stabilization. And so one thing that I want to point out to you is this right here, this debt service coverage ratio. So if you're looking for an SBA loan, the SBA lender is going to be very interested in this debt service coverage ratio number. They are going to have a goal. Each lender is going to have kind of a number that they expect. 1.25 is kind of a standard rule of thumb that they want to see a debt service coverage ratio of 1.25 or above. Now, what that means is that you have $1.25 of earnings or cash flow essentially to be able to cover your debt. So $1.25 for every $1 of debt service that you have. And so in this first year, we can see as we're kind of ramping up and reaching stabilization, we don't hit that 1.25. But by year 2, you are up to 1.86. And so there's some room there. Now, it's really going to depend on the lender. Think from an SBA perspective, you don't have to have a debt service coverage ratio of 1.25 like immediately, right in month 1. There's an expectation that can take a business time to ramp up. And so that's probably okay. However, some lenders may have their own opinions or credit box that they would look at. And so, that's a conversation with your lender about, hey, is it okay that we have just a meager amount of EBITDA in this first year or not? Or do we need to go back to the drawing board? So the other thing I would want to point out is if you come to the cash flow statement, the real key, I think, in addition to the debt service coverage ratio, is you want to make sure that your cash at the beginning of the period here never goes below 0. So we can see that as we start to ramp up, this cash balance starts to increase again, and we never go below 0. So we have a sufficient cushion there. So that's the template. Again, if you need help filling this out, if you kind of gone through this and said, I just want to tell you my plans for the facility and have you fill it out, or if you needed some help with some light customization, that's something that we offer. So reach out to us at support@ProjectionHub.com. If you have any other questions about the template or as you're filling it out, let us know. Happy to help. Now, as I promised, if you go to the description of the video below, you will find a link to a form. And if you fill out that form, we're going to email you our most up-to-date coupon code so you can get a discount on this particular template as our thank you to you. And then finally, if you found this video to be helpful at all in your process, I'd love it if you like the video, subscribe to our channel as we're putting out content about SBA loans and financial projections and business planning and all that sort of thing. So we'd love your support there. Thanks.